Hey, yo, B, did God tell you to do something?
Oh yeah, he did, and that's the perspective. Steps are, and here's what's happening. We are moving from tithing to all to Jesus and surrender. If you think you've ended when you just tithed, you've just begun. Hello there, dear viewer. Welcome back to The Perspective. This is episode 002. Yeah, we told you guys to subscribe. I don't know what you're still waiting for. This is the time. I don't know. Why must you wait? So, guys, welcome back. And this is Brian Othoo. We are having Perspective, like I just said. And today's topic is rather interesting. I mean, tithes and offering. They're talking money. Talking money, your money is involved. You're going to church and you're giving money. What's about this money that you're giving? And we have a very, very important guest with us today, and you don't want to miss this session. So I'll be inviting Mr. Pastor, Elder, business entrepreneur. What more can I say? He will introduce himself so that we get to know him better. Mr. Mandikudza, karibu sana.
Asante sana, Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
It feels good. I love to interact with young people.
Uh-huh.
I also love Kenya because it has become my second home.
Hey.
So I'm excited. I'm raring to go.
Is this where I say nay?
This is the part you say nay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You've been here for like how many days right now?
I was here since last Saturday. This is Thursday, so we're looking at about 6 days now.
Oh, 6 days. You must love Kenya, right?
Oh, I love Kenya.
Yeah, you should invite us to Zim at some
okay,
time.
It's official. You're invited.
Oh, nice.
Right here on the show.
Yeah, okay.
You've heard it first.
Zim, guys. Forget about the flag that you can see over there. Just imagine it's Zim.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe the viewers would like to know who and what you are, what you do, why you're even here, You can introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. That's the easy part, right? My name is Mandikudza Sitholetalks. I carry many hats. For about 25 years, I was a very active member of Shower Power.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm here as a singer. But I just resigned last year, so I let the young people take over. I think I'll go into more
singing,
mentorship, active singing in the group. Yes.
Okay.
I'll probably be doing solos or so with accompaniment in church. Mm-hmm. Maybe next phase, I don't know, but not active, moving around because it's hectic, and I'm 52, so we need to let the next generation come up and take over.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm also an entrepreneur. I've been a business person since 2005.
Okay.
I went back into corporate maybe for another 5 years between 2014 and 2019. But I'm back in business, and I'm also a family man. I'm a father of three.
Nice.
Two of them who are young adults, like some of you. And, so I speak for the 23-year-olds. I've got a 20-year-old. And then I've got a teenager who's 15, who's the last kid. And then I like to call myself a stewardship or stroke empowerment speaker.
Wow.
I like to speak about money.
Yes.
I like to encourage the young people to find ways of maximizing with whatever they have, their talents, but also acknowledging God and His role in making us wealthy.
Nice. I think that's a whole pack. We have a whole pack of a man here, because he's into business. He's a family man. So basically, all those things that we could be scared about, he's already gone through them, and he's someone who's informed. But now he's taken a shift, so it's no longer Shower Power singing, but Shower Power the message. He's showering the power of the message of the gospel.
I like that, Brian.
You like that?
Yeah.
It sounds right. It sounds right. Yeah. So we've had so many people talking about money, and we've had so many people discuss the issues that they have when it comes to money and religious setups. And it's been a challenge, and especially for us young people, we are like, The church is robbing us. And especially with these scammers who have come up. Nowadays, if you want to start a church, you can just wake up one day and say, Jesus is the Lord, and this is my ministry. You guys need to come and pay tithes and offerings. So people have become skeptical. It's no longer a principle like it used to be. You think that is is it something that is justified for us to withdraw from the normal way of viewing tithe and offering?
Well, you know what? Whenever God has something good and original, the devil always comes up with a counterfeit. So we must always be careful. There's always the original, and there's a counterfeit. For the young people, there's a Nike, then there's a Mike, there's an Adidas,
true,
and an Adibas.
Oh,
yeah. So we shouldn't worry too much what the devil is doing in terms of his counterfeits, because there are false prophets who are trying to get rich using the gospel. But it doesn't take away the original. There's still a Nike out there. An original. Those who know the Nike, they'll know that you look for at least 5 ticks on the shoe. You look for the one on the label and there. There's ways of differentiating original from fake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know the young people know ways of doing that. And that is the beauty of the Bible. It's a principle that was set before there were false prophets. For our own foreknowledge, preparation, so that we wouldn't be tricked into thinking otherwise. So the tithing principle is original, and if you want to know the original, we can go into that discussion. But there is original, and then there's counterfeit.
Okay. I believe that in this world there's a war that has been going on for ages now. The great conflict. This is a controversy between light and darkness.
Right.
If you may have it, God and the devil. And if we may narrow it down to the Christian setting, it's God, the Godhead, Father, Son, Holy Spirit against one arch enemy called the devil, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think for every truth there's a counter.
Yeah.
As long as we're in this planet, right?
Oh yeah, it's always going to be there. And I would be surprised if the devil didn't fight and bring counterfeits.
True.
I mean, what kind of an adversary would he be? He would. Excuse my French, he would suck at it. That's a term that young people use. That means that he would not be good at it.
Yeah, I agree. So he's a hard worker he's doing his part, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so tithe and offering, their significance in terms of in worship. What is really their significance? Because if we understand that, then now we can, it sets the basis for our discussion. What are the significance?
What I like to do with tithing and offering is to look at the origins. And then try and find out why God did something like that. There's 2 perspectives you can have, and I like that the show is called Perspective.
Yes.
We can have a perspective where we look at it as if it's a fundraising program. And God is trying to draw money from us so he can fund his program.
Okay.
But when you start to think properly and you're really trying to put on your thinking hat and would God need for us to fund his programs? Would he take money from us for us to benefit him? Would he take money for us to build a church for him, to feed his poor that he brought into this world? The question is no. So we must look beyond that and try and find out what happened. So tithing was established for God to establish a covenant. A covenant in 2 ways. One is he's the provider. Tithing is an acknowledgement that God owns everything. Look, if you doubt that God owns everything, build mansions and put $1 million there, and then wait until God takes away your life and see what happens to that wealth.
Wow.
The wealth will carry on, but you are out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? During COVID, we had billionaires and millionaires who died.
Yes.
So that means that you don't own anything.
True.
So tithing is meant for us to always remember that God is the owner and provider.
Awesome.
That's one aspect.
Okay.
Then the second aspect is that God is also saying, okay, fine. My tithe in Numbers 18:21. Because I cannot leave it. It will rot. It'll be useless if I just take it and put it away and not use it. I've given it to my Levites, he says in Numbers 18:21, who, because of the work they do in the temple, I don't want you coming to the temple and looking for a priest to help you with your sacrifice. And then you hear that, the priest is out in the field looking for money. He says, I have given them a portion of my tithe so that they may have work. That's why the Bible will say in Malachi 3, bring ye all the tithes into my storehouse, into my house, so there may be meat in my house. And that meat is then given to the Levites. So it's a secondary. The first purpose is covenant relationship. I'm God and I'm providing for you. Acknowledge it. Secondly, now that you have acknowledged, I've given it to the Levites. Thirdly, if you do that, verse 10 of Malachi 3, try me and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour you out so much blessing that you'll have no room to contain it. So the third principle about tithing, the third reason is that he's looking to bless us for acknowledging him, for having that relationship, and for worshiping him. We then become the beneficiaries of tithe. I don't know if that makes sense, Brian.
It makes a lot of sense. I like the point. One point I like about what you just said is it's part of worship. And that's deep.
Absolutely.
If I think about it. Yeah.
You know what? There's two positions you can take. The game about who's who in the zoo started in heaven. I hope you don't mind my French, my language. I'm speaking to young people.
It's okay.
Yeah, who's who in the zoo? You know what? You put people in a room, men. One of them will come out the leader. You put animals, the animal kingdom, we see it. One of them will come out the alpha. So God never wanted a relationship where no one knows who they are in the zoo. That's why in heaven he created everyone. He gave power. But one did not like to acknowledge the fact that he's a creature. And he challenges.
Big problem.
So one is a creator, the other is a creature. Who worships who?
The creature worships the creator.
The creature worships the creator. But if that does not come out clear, and if those lines are not drawn, that relationship will bring a fight. And that's what happened in heaven. One refused to worship the other. And because he was weaker, when there is a fight in the animal kingdom, the weaker animal is always thrown away. The devil was thrown away. Now let's come to the Garden of Eden. The worship aspect. Don't touch the tree. It's God's way of saying who's who in the zoo. I am the creator. I'm setting the boundaries. You want to be subject to me, you acknowledge and worship, and you don't touch the tree. All right? So if you think touching the tree, and now if you touch the tree, you're challenging me, and you now also want to be worshipped. Adam did the same thing. He touched the tree, meaning he challenged God. Are you listening to me today? And then when he challenged God, God threw him out the same way he threw out the Lucifer from heaven. Tithing is the same. Everyone should have in life this aspect of drawn lines that determine who's God and who's man. Who's the provider, who's the provided for. So when you return tithe, you're worshiping and you're saying, I'm on my knees. You are providing. When you eat tithe, you're saying, I'm the owner. Do what you want about it. And when that happens, eviction always is the next step. I don't know if you get that.
I get it.
Yeah,
because I believe, in any case, people who I always find people who, they oppose that and they're like, why was God doing this? I don't think it's fair. And my question is, if you go to your job right now and you defy the authority, do you think they will be like, wow, you have outdone yourself, you are on the right track, we are going to have you pursue whatever you want to pursue, that they will simply ask you to exit, right?
True. And let me define it a little bit further, if you'll allow me, Brian.
Please.
Every relationship without boundaries is going to be a troublesome relationship. I always give an example is if you come together as young people, you put $1,000 US each, or you put $100 US each, and you give it to one person to manage. And then you don't give them boundaries. Then they start buying what they want. They start empowering themselves. That relationship is going to be messed up. You start fighting because there hasn't been boundaries. And then the guy will say, no, but I'm managing your fund. So I thought it was good for me to at least buy myself a better iPad. It was better for me to do whatever it is that I felt like doing with money that's not his. So in order to preserve the relationship, what do you do, Brian? If you realize that there is an open-ended relationship with no boundaries, what measures do you put to make sure that this person does not do what he's not supposed to be doing? Because he's saying it's an open-ended relationship. Yeah. So what do?
You place some boundaries. You place some rules on how to go about that.
Fantastic. Oh, you're thinking like a young person. So you put code of conduct.
Yeah.
You do a contract.
Yeah.
You put things that somebody would know that you don't cross this path. And that is meant to preserve the relationship rather than to cause a fight.
I agree.
You understand?
True.
So it's God put things that are meant to preserve the relationship. Tithing and offering was instituted so that the relationship has boundaries. Everyone knows who they are. Remove tithe, you have removed the boundaries.
The boundaries.
And who's who in the zoo is the question again. And people don't know their boundaries. Remove the tree of knowledge of good and evil from the garden. Then
everybody will be doing whatever they want.
Everybody will be doing whatever they want. Adam will forget. People forget. You leave a tenant in your house for too long, they start thinking they're the owner. That's why you need to have a lease. A lease will protect the relationship. Everyone will know their place. I'm a tenant. I'm the owner. Don't have a lease. Don't have boundaries. You are setting up for a fight. The relationship won't go.
I think boundaries are things that we should not really assume. People really take those things lightly. So in other words, you are saying God is more interested in our relationship with Him rather than the money that we think He's demanding from us.
The money is secondary. It's got its own other benefits that you will get from actually returning the money. The one thing He wants to preserve is the relationship. Just to show you that God is not looking for the money. In Luke 6:38, the Bible says, "Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together." When you return, He says then in Malachi 3:10, as pertaining to tithe, "Try me and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour you out so much blessing that you'll have no room to contain it." So when you have given tithe, and then He gives you so much blessing that you have no room to contain, whose money has worked in the field? Who has benefited more? It's you. So it's not like He's just trying to set boundaries, establish a relationship, and you're good to go.
Wow. We're taking a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back, guys. I think if you're still with us to this point, kindly do that thing. Let's have a good relationship, right? We're talking about relationships with God here, and we're talking about tithe. And ladies and gentlemen, we are having Mandikudza on the show. So giving a perspective to whatever we are discussing is something to do with how we should approach tithe and offering. So we were having a discussion, and somebody was saying we should. They give their tithes. Once they get their pay, they give their tithes. Then they give their offering, right? So if they sum it all up, for example, if you're taking an offering of 10% of whatever you've earned, and the tithe offering is as well 10%, that's 20% of their 100, right? So what happens the following Sabbath, or the following gathering that you have, because I understand we are different Christians from different faiths, right? So you've given offering this Sabbath, you've summed it all as a 10%, and yet the word of God says, "Do not come to my house empty-handed." So what happens? Do you still give? Because someone said them they do it once. Till next time. How do you go about that?
Good question. I think that we need to look at the principle more than the practice. We need to look at the principle more than the formality of how to collect. What is the principle? acknowledging God as provider. Second principle on offering. Also making sure that offering is meant for religious service. It's also meant for the poor. So I think ideally, if you are systematic and you're organized, if you go to the book of, I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 16, if I'm not mistaken, 1 and 2, it talks about you need to prepare so that when the priests are coming, you would have put your things together, and then they collect and go and take it to Jerusalem. That was at that time. So it's just saying that be organized about it, so that when the collection comes and it has to go to the Jerusalem, it's there. So if you say tithing for a month, I mean, let's also agree that back in the day, tithing was a seasonal thing. The Bible is a Bible-based, is an agro-based book. There's no way they would have something every Sabbath, because sometimes they were waiting for the harvest and it would come after a long season. So it's not necessarily about coming to God empty-handed, as in every Sunday or every Monday or whatever day you meet, every Saturday or every Sabbath. It's the principle is, out of what you have earned, have you set aside an offering? Whether you give it once off, or you break it down so that every time you go to worship, you give something if it makes you feel better. But for me, the principle is just to make sure that you are giving it back. You are returning. God says you do not rob me of tithes and offerings. So the principle of having it every Sabbath is not something you can. What I do is, once I earn, I take it to the church. When the plate goes round, I'm not affected. If I feel like giving more, I will give more. But I don't feel guilty because I've already given for my month. And if you try it the other way around to give in bits and pieces, quite often you will not give as much as you do when you are doing it systematically. When you do it systematically, you're calculating it at home, you're calculating the amount in a lump sum, you give it away at once and it's gone. Try and give it every Sabbath. Sometimes you have not even carried enough. And quite often you won't. Have you seen big amounts floating around in the plate on during offering time? Quite often not. But if it's an envelope and it's one-off, it's also good. Seasonal, monthly, weekly. The principle is just make sure it's given.
Can you tithe loans though?
No. God does not take what doesn't belong to you. A loan is you've borrowed money. It is not yet yours until you've paid it back. So the Bible in Deuteronomy chapter 14 and verse 22 says we tithe increase.
Interesting.
We tithe increase. So God cannot demand a tithe from something he has not given. So it has to be profit. If you have made a profit, if you have made increase, he says, I've given you. So now acknowledge me. Tithing is an acknowledgement of what God has given. A loan is not, you've not been given. Don't think when you have a loan, you say, oh, thank you, it's mine, and you go away. The bank will come after you. Because it's not your money. They've given it to you, and until you've paid it back, it's not your money. So if you take a loan and pay it back, you've come down to zero. There's no increase there. The increase comes from earning, not from borrowing. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So no, don't tithe alone.
So basically, God is somebody who is a person who expects us to work, get something that belongs to us.
Yes.
Then to preserve the relationship, we go back to Him in worship. Right?
We acknowledge what He's given us. Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18 says, so that you may not say in your heart, this wealth is coming from my hands, from my hard work. You need to remember that it is God who gives the power to get wealth. So you need to remember that and acknowledge Him, so that it then goes on further to say, so that He may preserve the covenant, which is the relationship. So ideally what we're saying is, God gives first. The blessing comes first. Then the tithing is expected as an acknowledgement of the blessing. Not the other way around. People struggle with tithe because you're thinking He's asking from me when I don't have anything. He's taking. God doesn't take where He has not first given. What comes first is the blessing. Then tithing is expected as an acknowledgement of what has been given.
I totally relate to some of what you've just said, because in the negative sense, because I was that person who was like, no, why must we give this money? God is in heaven, he's rich, he's in our position. We should be enjoying the fruits of our labors. I mean, he's enjoying his, right?
Absolutely.
If you take away the sin part, he is.
Yeah. I mean, he's God, and he labored, and he's going to reap this whole evangelism, this whole process of living is his project where he's going to harvest his own characters. So So I know you touched a bit about it, but I need you to like put a context to it and a clarity to it, because people really don't know why, what, and which this tithe and offering does in church. Why should we give it? Who is supposed to benefit from it? The why starts with the covenant, the relationship.
Okay.
That's the why. You need to have a covenant relationship and acknowledge God for providing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the primary purpose.
Yeah.
Secondary purpose, you also give it so that there may be meat. God says in Malachi 3, bring ye all the tithes, verse 8, so that there may be meat in my house. Okay? Mm-hmm. So he's trying to say there are people in my house who depend on it.
Aha.
And then in Numbers 18:21 he says, behold, I have given my tithes to the Levites.
Okay.
As a secondary purpose, they were given.
Oh, he's the one who's giving.
Yes.
Not that there are people who are just seated in church waiting for our tithes.
No. He says, I have given the Levites because of their work in the temple.
Okay.
And mind you, in verse 25, he then expects the Levites, who've also been given, to return a tithe of the tithes, because he also wants to have a relationship with them.
Wow.
So when you look at that relationship, it then shows very clearly that the Levites are not the owners of this money.
Wow.
Because they are also returning tithe. To who? To God.
So but where are they returning it to? Once it okay. Just proceed. I'm recollecting this.
There are. The idea is that while the process is happening, worship is happening.
Yes.
The owner of the tithe is not the Levites.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Tithing started way before the Levite was born. If you go to Genesis chapter 14, you will come across Abraham when he had gone to rescue his brother's son Lot, who had been captured together with the other by the surrounding kings. And when he comes back, he had captured captured things back, and he meets Melchizedek. Then he tithes. This is 4 generations before Levi. So tithe is already being given before the Levite was there, and it's being given to Melchizedek. If you read him from the book of Hebrews, that's the order of Christ. The one who has no beginning and no end. That's God himself.
Yeah. So basically, can we say that Abel gave an offer? Was it an offering, or was that a tithe? In the case of like someone like Abel, when he gave a sacrifice.
No, that blood offering was an offering. That was more like a sin offering.
Okay.
In fact, it was a sin offering because it required blood.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that kind of offering, there were different offerings in the Bible. Yeah. But the one that Abel and Cain were analyzed about, that was a sin offering. It required, so the book of Hebrews says, without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. And Cain knew that. He decided to defy that instruction and that understanding. And he said, I can bring my own offering. I'll bring what I found. And yet, as much as it was a good thing to bring an offering, but not that offering. That one needed blood.
Okay, so basically we can also not come up with our own percentages in regards to tithe. For example, God has said 10%. So you want to say, God, I'll just take this a little bit lower so that I can survive, 5, 4, maybe.
Well, I wish you could do the same with taxes. Not that tithing is a tax, it's a principle. In fact, the taxing principle was copied from God's tithing. Can you say to the Kenyan government, instead of 15% sales tax, I don't know what the percentage is in Kenya, I'm going to pay only 5% sales tax? No, you can't.
They will come for you.
Yeah, that's some form of rebellion. So God in Leviticus 27 verse 30 says, bring here tithes. It's mine. It's holy. So he has already determined the percentage because he's the owner of it.
Okay.
He's the one who has owned, and he's the one who has given, and he's the one who determines the percentage. And tithe is not yours. It's not mine. Yeah, it's his. Yeah.
Oh, I like the fact that you brought in the tax part and made it more relatable with the normal things that we do. I think since the fall, man's nature is against God, because we realize that when it comes to God's things, we are always fighting. But the same things applied in our day-to-day lives.
We think it's okay.
So it's kind of a double standard format.
True.
Yeah. So quick question: are Levites the same as priests today?
I would say yes, because looking at the function. More than just the name. You see, when you look at the Levitical order, why was it established? It's because of the temple and the sanctuary services. Okay? Now, the temple and the sanctuary services, have they, what do you need? You need a priest. You need somebody who will conduct the service. You need somebody who will take what we call the advocacy. Where intercessory role between man and God. Do we still have that? Yes. So the Levite was a son of Jacob chosen for that particular priestly role. Of standing as an intercessor while doing what needed to be done in the sanctuary. All right. So the Levite, therefore, for that time, it might have passed in terms of that we no longer just use Levites alone. We now use the office rather than the genealogy. Because none of us are Israelites, by the way. Sure. Some of us are. But none of us, in terms of you and me, may be Israelites by DNA. We are now spiritual Israelites. Because we're spiritual Israelites, we also have spiritual Levites. Who are the priests? Who are the pastors?
Never thought about it that way.
Who are the people who are holding office, who are actually doing the sanctuary services? These are people who do full-time ministry to make sure you and I have an intercessor, to make sure the service is done, to make sure a burial is done, to make sure you are prayed for, to make sure they preach and draw you closer to Christ. The same thing that the Levites used to do.
So this basically leads to the next question, if you may. Priests and Levites, kind of, they are in God's service. So the question that we found as we were discussing some of these things was if the Levites, the priests, get some of their income from the, if you call it, is it income, whatever it is, from the tithes and offerings, right? How about the church workers? There are people who work in church, and these are people who work in maybe, let's even bring it to the lowest form, maybe choristering, making sure that the videos in church are live streamed. These are people who are cleaning the seats. Maybe today people have made it to look like it's the job of the deacons in church, really, but the deaconry office really tends to be more than just cleaning chairs in church. So there are all these things that are there. Are these people also? Should they be considered in the pay?
That's a good question, because when you look at the Israelite setup, even the musician Asaph and his generation of musicians, those were also taken care of by the church. What was easier for that time is that there was a church and a sanctuary in Jerusalem.
Yes.
And the collections would come to that one church. Distribution would happen within this church. But because of growth and because of the numbers, we're now about 7 billion in this world. There are many Jerusalems, there are many sanctuaries all over the place.
Yeah.
So the church now has a structure which brings together all these different sanctuaries, which in our case, which is the Seventh-day Adventist, we have the General Conference. And then you have the subdivision of the General Conference, which we call the division. And then you have the conferences. And then you have the districts and then the churches. So the structure is such that when the tithes go, the church is the one that employs those full-time employees. Some of them who work at the offices. Some of them, I think, are pastors who then work in our churches. But it seems like our church has only chosen to pay the pastors, but not the musicians. Which is unfortunate. But ideally, I personally think that if anyone is doing full-time work, and by the way, full-time.
That's a good catchphrase.
Full-time work in the sanctuary. They should be paid off the tithes and offerings. Because that's the money coming into the storehouse.
True.
So maybe because our General Conference is not doing it, or maybe there are no full-time musicians, but they should be. Then sometimes the churches themselves should take it as a responsibility, where from their own offerings they can pay those who serve within their own church. Ideally, because we're now a structure which is organized, the employers should actually be the structure, within the structure. True. So if they're employed through the structure, they should be paid through the structure. But however, if we don't follow the structure, or we've seen that there's a deficit and the structure is not catering for us, for it, and the local church decides to employ, then the local church should pay.
I think that's really in order, because most of the time people forget that even these guys who, sometimes sing, some of them are doing that. That's the only work they're doing. They put in the work by practice. They sacrifice their fares at times. They don't have fares. I know someone who walked with a wife. They walked to practice, and the distance they covered was very long. The wife was pregnant, and they came for practice, and I was like, okay, this is what you guys do. And the church somehow has kind of turned a blind eye on some of these things. And it's painful.
I will agree with you, because I've been a musician for more than 3 decades. And I think that's where sometimes the church is coming short. When I said full-time, I was talking about those who are actually employed. But there are also those that do it part-time. But I'll tell you what, there are other churches who do it well. We've sung in many other congregations that are not necessarily Seventh-day Adventists. I'll give you an example, Pentecostals, for instance. When you go and sing in that church, they'll give you an envelope. They call it a love offering, because they understand that you are putting in your hours. You are putting in your time, your dedication, and those that eat that are of the gospel should eat of the gospel. The Bible says, do not muzzle the cow that tills the land. So if the cow is tilling the land, it must eat from the gospel. So you'll find that what we are doing now in Zim, musicians, when we are going to sing somewhere, we just say, look, we have got transport, this PA system, and whatever, because to practice the cost of, it's not just the cost of coming to your church. Every week I go to practice twice, and I'm using my resources to go in and out, and then you just want to call me and say, God bless you.
God bless you.
I think churches must also understand that the principle of God is that He rewards those that dedicate themselves to Him. God does not rob. He doesn't want you to work for Him for nothing. That's why that storehouse was created. For those that have a service in there, they should work and be paid from it. That's my opinion.
I think I agree with that opinion, because so many young people are complaining underwater. Here in Kenya we say chini ya maji. So these people are just complaining under there. They cannot really project their voice, because they know if they dare, the elders. In Kenya we have this situation where it's the elders against the youth. There's this friction.
Now, I think the elders must also appreciate that when people are dedicating their lives to their art, whether they be choristers, whether they be singers, musicians, it's important to understand that they're doing it in the service of God. And those people should have access to the storehouse and what is brought into the storehouse. And it's God's given way of ensuring that those that dedicate their lives to His kingdom don't go hungry.
I agree. Most of them, we have these conversations, but they've never been projected anywhere. So that's why I'm taking this opportunity today, because every time we hear the statement, it pays to serve Jesus. But where is the practicality of this? I think you talked about structures, and it's time the church, looked into these matters and established them. We keep telling our young people that the art does not pay. That's the voice out here. That's the message. That's the message. So if the church can start making structures that can actually pay that art, the light of the world begins from the smallest cell, which is the family, which is church at the end of the day. So if church can become the pro of making this structure where art can be paid, then it will spread, and there will be a ripple effect.
True. I'll give you one example. There are some church folk, especially the elders that you're talking about, who had problems with us charging money for concerts that we had. We spend countless hours practicing.
Imagine.
And by the way, how do you make money? It's time times talent. So time times talent equals money. I'm spending time developing my talent, and you don't want me to make money from it. That's cruel.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's evil. So they said, but why are you charging for concerts? You're selling the gospel. Even those that sell Bibles, that print Bible, they're not printing them for free.
No.
Yeah, you're expecting someone else. There's nothing for free in this world. You're expecting someone else to pay for it, and then you receive it for free.
Imagine.
Yeah, they say, what's the statement? If I'm not the gospel, they say. Salvation is free, but the gospel is expensive.
I agree.
So people must understand that because the gospel is expensive, that's why there was a Judas in the disciples who handled the finances.
True.
There wouldn't have been need for a treasurer if they were able to go around without money. Yeah, so the gospel is expensive. That's why when we develop our art and we become so good and you want to hear us, and we're outside of church hours, you need to pay for it. So we have pay concerts.
I think that's something that this should here in Kenya inasema how do we say that thing? Ifike kwa wazazi. Ifikie wazazi. We say ifikie wazazi. Let it reach the parents.
Okay,
that's the translation.
All right.
So our parents in this case are the church basically.
All right.
So let this message reach the church. we need these matters looked into and given a second thought. Yeah, because we need to practicalize the statement. It pays to serve Jesus.
True.
It starts from here before God can really, because if we are followers of Christ, then if Christ rewards those who work in His service,
we should do the same.
If we are like Christ, we should do the same.
True, and that's why He said, "Do not muzzle the cow that tills the land, the ox. Do not muzzle the ox that tills the land."
I think I'll make a T-shirt of return that statement. I love it. Yeah, so in this first segment, we were just establishing what it really means and what tithe and offering is all about. And the final part of this was in regards to vows. So in the Adventist faith, there is a vow number 13 that you will faithfully give your tithe and offering to support the church and blah, 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 blah. So it gets to a point everybody at some point tends to question. We all, I mean, there was a time I decided to become an atheist because I was growing, and that was a time when I already knew so much in regards to Christianity, in regards to, but I still decided to become an atheist, because it's a growing process. It's a process of light into light.
True.
So if it's light into light, there's a point after you take a vow, there's a point you question and you're like, wait, hold on. I made a vow. I didn't really understand, but now that I'm questioning this tithe and offering, probably I should refrain from it. So how do you handle that? And remembering that there's a verse that says God cannot be mocked. If you make a vow to God, you have to honor your vow.
Interesting question. What does vow number 13 say, by the way? Is it what has it got to do with tithe and offering?
It basically, you will faithfully give your tithe and offering.
Okay. So what are you saying, that if somebody then realizes that he doesn't want to and then he stops?
Yeah, probably it's not clear for him about tithe and offering. Like you see, now we are dealing with tithe and offering.
Oh, okay.
So they have grown to that point where they are realizing stuff and now
they're questioning. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's a good question.
Yeah.
One of the underlying principles of God's kingdom is justice.
Okay.
Not conformity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, justice.
Wow.
Yeah, the Pharisees were trying to conform to the law. But it's a law of justice. If you break down the law, you realize that it's not just a law.
Yeah.
It's actually a law of love. It's a law of justice. If you truly say you serve God, you can't have other gods.
Oh, yeah.
You can't worship graven images. You can't say his name in vain. You can't choose your own day to worship when he says he's got his own day. Mm-hmm. The last 6, if you love mankind, you will not, you will honor your parents. First mankind you get to know, you get to relate with.
Yeah.
You will not kill another one. So the entire law is about justice. Do not steal. Yeah, somebody else owns that. Would you like it if somebody was to take you on? Mm-hmm. So the justice of God's kingdom is that he needs to understand what's going on. A lot of those vows are taken when people are just starting and they're excited, and some of them don't even understand because they're in front of the church, the pressure and so forth. So there could be a little bit of a problem in the system itself.
True.
And the mistake is not in the individual, but in the way it's been structured. Okay. So in law, if you look at the I spent a lot of time in courts because of one job that I had way back. And I got to know a few things. In law, if there's something called, if you're not ad idem, I think they call that's the Latin, if you're not of the same mind, I think it's ad idem.
Okay.
Let's say you have an agreement, but you are picturing one thing and I'm picturing something different.
Yeah.
We are not, we think we are agreeing, but we are not, our understandings are different.
True.
We say, can I take this cup? And I say, you want to take it for pouring it away? And you say, yeah, I want to take it for drinking. And I said, okay, you can take it for pouring it away. And say, oh, thank you, I'm going to drink it. So we are not understanding each other.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
When it comes now to the justice system, it can actually realize that, okay, you guys were not of the same mind.
Yeah.
What he believed was happening is not what was happening. So the law then does the most just thing there to say, no, sorry, okay, it's a misunderstanding. This is what it meant. Then you say, okay, if this is what it meant, I don't want to be in that agreement. People must be allowed to, people must get into an agreement with understanding. Yeah. And if I'm not in understanding, allow me to pull out. You're being unfair to me if you bind me to something I did not understand in the first place.
I love it.
Do you understand that?
Yes.
And God is not like that he will just bind you for the sake of binding you.
Character.
Are you listening to me today? Yeah, he's a God of justice.
Wow.
Yeah, if you have made a vow and you didn't understand what you were talking about. Because the kingdom of God is about free will. Yeah, free will accepts that I have a different opinion and I don't like this. That's why the devil was not killed from the very beginning. He was allowed to choose death. He was allowed to choose eviction. And he chose eviction.
Interesting.
That's why Adam and Eve were allowed to choose to eat or not, but they were told not to. But if you want to eat, fair enough, you'll face the consequences. You know what I mean? So God allows you not to agree with him. So I've made a vow, but I don't agree with what is being said here. Pull out. God doesn't. In fact, God does not delight in. That's why the Bible in 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6 going down. And then when it says, he who sows little will reap little, he who sows abundantly will reap abundantly. Then it says, God loves a cheerful giver. How do you become cheerful when you're giving? When you really understand what's going on, you subscribe to it. And you are happy to do it. God does not want the tithe of those that are not converted.
Wow.
No.
Interesting. Because I think what the devil has really managed to pull is tear down the character of God. Because now people feel like they are bound by this unbreakable vow. Even they are not allowed to question.
No.
And that's not God's character. God is a relation. We started off by saying relationship.
Exactly.
And relationships are about, come now, let's reason
Come, let's
together.
reason together. Do you see what I'm doing? Yeah, I see what you're doing. Is it okay for you to? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
God, you are God after all. Oh, wonderful. So let's relate. Let's worship.
Wow.
But if you say, I don't want to subscribe to you, I'm not your God, he says, okay, fine. So I'll evict you so that we are in separate worlds. You can exist in your own world.
Yeah, you can try it by yourself.
Do what you want to do. I won't force you to do what I want you to do.
Yeah.
You understand that?
Yeah.
So God doesn't want to force people into, and this is what Ananias into doing what they don't want to do. Ananias and Sapphira,
Yes.
they tried to follow what others were doing, but with unconverted hearts, and it was painful for them. That time, people were just giving, and they followed the bandwagon of also giving, but their hearts were not there.
Yes.
And what happened in the end? When they gave, they were like, this is too much to give to this God. And then they withheld. Their sin was not giving to God. Their sin was lying about what they had given.
True.
So the lying is what killed them. And not the not giving. Because they could have simply not given and no one was going to take issue with them. Or they could have given less and said, okay, we're selling our house, we're only giving 80%.
Yeah.
And God would have been okay with 80. But the question was, is this all that you intended to give? Is this all that we are going to sell our house and we'll bring it all? Is this all that you got from selling your house? Yes, it is. And they're like, you're such a liar. And that's what happened. They were taking God for a ride.
I think, but now that you've mentioned Ananias and Sapphira, there are people who look at it from a very vague manner, where they look at God's actions today, and his judgments are not taken at that hour, and so they are like, nah. First of all, they now say God does not really care about if I withdraw some money from from where it's supposed to be. Like, for example, if I lie about it today, God won't be struck dead. So they kind of play around with that and feel like God wouldn't take any action. In the sessions that you've been having, you talked about a seed. You invest a seed. So I think borrowing from that, it can be said that don't look at it as if you are now, give or take from God. If it's a relationship, you know that you are investing.
Yes.
And I borrow the school of thought which says that if we started off by talking about the Creator, if I have created you, that means the more you stick around with me, you'll know your purpose, and your life will be preserved. But the more you go away from me, that means you're reducing your chances of knowing your purpose, and your life might not really stabilize.
It won't work out.
So if we are investing, that means we're investing in a relationship a long time, whether it does not come today, but eventually it will happen because we are investing in God. And the relationship is what it's all about.
And that's the primary. And that's the most important.
True.
The relationship, because that's the primary. There's also the secondary investment. In that God is in tithing is also teaching us discipline. No business has ever succeeded without the discipline of always planting into the soil. Not everything that falls into your hands is for consumption.
That was powerful.
Even if it's consumable.
Loved that.
So tithing is also meant to teach us how to multiply. Do you understand that? The discipline to be able to take a percentage of what you have earned or what God has given you and give it back or give it somewhere. Put it into the ground again. And then you learn that the more you put into the ground, because the death of today, the planting of today is the harvest of tomorrow. So it means that you are being taught the discipline of growing. This is why God is saying, try me and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour you out so much blessing that you'll have no. Because he has taught you how to derive the best out of the earth. He has taught you how to plant. And now you will be reaping multiples. Because once you put a seed into the ground, it doesn't only give you perpetual supply, it also gives you multiplication. So you are being poured out with so much blessing that you will not have room to contain. So tithing and offering teaches you how to multiply your resources. That's why God says, try me and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven. And pour. So it's also a source of blessing. One, relationship, beautiful. Two, a relationship with abundance too. He has taught you how to plant, wait, harvest. It's actually business training.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen who have been keeping it real with us, I mean, you can see that all this is about our relationship with God. At the end of the day, it's not from a selfish perspective. God is not selfish. I mean, right?
Oh,
His character of love is being revealed in tithe and offering. And if you've been sticking with us this far, we thank you for sticking around, and we hope that you may be able to share with others as well, because these are questions that everybody is asking. If you're a Christian, I mean, you must have asked yourself, where do these tithes and offerings go to, and what do they do, and how are they significant to us? And so we need to be people who are inquisitive, because our God is someone He did not create robots. So we need to be interacting with Him and asking questions so that our relationship is established. Because all relationships, whether it is a man, woman, if it's a family, if it's friends, whatever it is, if it's an employer, employee, there's always a relationship, and people ask questions, people give and take, people ask and receive, and people establish those relationships for the long term, because at the end of the day, we will reap what we sow. So if you sow a good relationship, you will reap a good relationship. And so the last part of this segment will be the hot, burning questions. I mean, I've been waiting to get to this point. This has been a point of contention. People have been asking if at that time I thought they were very serious questions, but towards the end I'm realizing, well, if it's about relationship, then there will always be an answer to everything. So we will take a short break and get back to the 4 questions that remain, the hot, burning questions. Stick with us. Welcome back. Welcome back to The Perspective. This is Brian Othoo, and we are keeping it real here about tithes and offering with Mr. Mandikudza. Karibu sana tena.
Asante sana.
Yeah. How is it so far?
Nzuri sana.
Nzuri?
Fantastic.
You're sharing a perspective and you're enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it.
Is the Spirit impressing it on you?
I love to talk to young people, and I also love sharing the gospel. And the Lord has been teaching me issues to do with this subject and stewardship for a long time. And so I think it's something that I love to do any day. I would care to remember, as you are introducing yourself, you forgot to say you're an author. You've written a book. Stewardship Concepts. 77 Stewardship Nuggets. Guys, you need to check out this book. I mean, whatever he's saying, you will have the juice. That's the juice. Now you need the bread. You need the bread. This is the bread. Most of the things that I've heard you preach are also already written over here. And I think most of us need this in our journey with money and tithes and offerings. When did you write this? I wrote this, I think I released it 2017. I was writing it for about 3 years before 2017. Wow. Now I'm working on my second, which is focusing on the Creation Week.
Wow.
And
the
empowerment material we get from the creation week, how God prepared this world for us to earn a living. He created, and we can learn how to create. He created everything. We can create wealth. Wow. And we can create a lot more from the Genesis account. That's what I'm working on now on my second book.
I can't wait to hear what the Lord has inspired you to write, because, hey, the Creation Week, apparently there are people who think the Creation Week is a symbol of millions and millions and millions of years of creation.
Yeah,
but
just a week.
So how can somebody find your book?
Good question. I've been trying to put it on Amazon. I will.
Okay.
But it's actually printed in Kenya.
All right.
Yeah. I'm printing it in Kenya because it's actually more reasonable than back home. So copies, if people get in touch with my friend Elder Ndege.
Okay.
Dismas, I'll organize that copies can be made available. Or I'll make sure that the people who know you can then be able to access them through you because they're printed here, so it's easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have them in bookshops yet.
All right. But I know they will be soon, right? I pray that they will be, because these are books that need to, be spread wide. Yeah. So, guys, we will leave the link below, so that if you need some of these spiritual books, you can get them. And if you need this specific book, we will let you know how you can also find it. As he has said, we'll let you know. So let's get right into it. The 4 hot questions, and get this thing done. So question number 1. We were in a WhatsApp forum, and this person wrote it. Convince. Any question that the statement begins with the word convince, confirm to me. That's a challenge that somebody is throwing to you.
Okay.
Convince me. Convince us. This is what the person wrote. Convince us. Actually, he was writing it to somebody who had tried to answer his question.
Okay.
So he was like, convince us to believe that the new... convince us believers, us who believe in the New Testament, should tithe. Now that the New Testament has no record of tithing. So is what they wrote.
Good question. It's actually not true that the New Testament has no record of tithe, because it does. But it's partially true because the New Testament does not dwell much on tithing.
Okay.
Now I'll explain why. Matthew 23:23. This is Jesus talking to the Pharisees, talking to everyone. He says, "Woe unto you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and cumin and anise, but you neglect the weightier matters of the law."
Okay.
In my book, I write about the weightier matters. So he says the weightier matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. What he's trying to say is tithing is not the end, but it's a means to the end. Tithing without understanding the purpose loses. You are tithing mint and anise and cumin to the minute details, but you're neglecting why the tithing is happening. The weightier matters. The tithing is about faith. It's about mercy. It's about justice. So God is saying that, and then he then says after that, these things ought ye to do, but not neglecting the weightier matters.
Wow.
Now, I'll give you an example of a weightier matter of the law. The law is not just about keeping it.
Yeah.
It's about understanding why you are keeping it. It's not just about do not steal, and you say, okay, the Bible says do not steal.
Yeah.
Do you understand why God would say do not steal? If you understand that it's an issue of justice, it's an issue of love. If something belongs to someone, I cannot just break and take it away. Then you're likely to keep them low better than the Pharisees who were just keeping it for the sake of the law and not understanding what was behind the weightier matters. So Christ did not stop us from tithing. He says these things ought ye to do. We are doing them to develop character. We are doing them to develop faith. We are doing them to establish justice. God is the provider. It's only just to follow what he says when he has given. If the bank says, I'm giving you a loan, and I want you to pay a certain amount every month.
Yes.
The justice of the system says that if you have got the loan from the bank, you must adhere to the plan. If you actually don't adhere to the plan that they are giving in the payment plan, and you skip and you skip and you skip, they will repossess whatever you've put in as security. Or you become a high risk person and your next loan is going to be higher. Or they will come and get you into prison, whatever it is, or blacklist you. You know what I mean? So the New Testament is a tithing testament, but let's understand what tithing was supposed to do. Tithing is just a symbol that God owns everything. But tithing is the first step towards going to God. But if you have gone to God with 10%, you have only gone to God with 10%. God wants 100%. It's not 10% that God owns. It's all of us, including ourselves. So God is trying to draw us to himself, starting with 10%. Then you move to offering plus. So the steps are, here's what's happening. We are moving from tithing to all to Jesus I surrender. If you think you've ended when you've just tithed, you've just begun. The relationship with God does not end with acknowledging him as king. It ends by transforming into his character. What I always say about tithing and offering is that tithing is just the covenant. You have now established a relationship. Offering is now the character. How much do you offer in character to God? You offer everything. All to Jesus I surrender. Take the world but give me Jesus. So I say tithing is like a marriage certificate. Offering is now how much love there is in that. How much do you pour your heart out to your spouse? You give your all. How much do you pour your heart out to your children? You give your all. How much do you pour your heart out to your loved one? To God. You give your all. So the Old Testament was a doing testament. The New Testament is a being testament. God wanted us to do so that we become eventually. That's why when you look at the New Testament, they're no longer talking about tithing, because the transition is happening between the doing to the becoming, from the tithing to the all to Jesus I surrender. Look at what happens in the New Testament. They're no longer counting percentages. If you look at Zacchaeus, when he got converted, he says, look, Lord, in Luke chapter 19, I give half of my wealth to the poor. He has already given half. And remember, this was the chapter after Luke 18. Luke 18 says, the Lord says, give all your wealth to the poor. He's expecting that this New Testament rich young ruler has already reached an all to Jesus I surrender. So he says give all, not tithe. Give all. Because that's what I'm expecting, not 10%. If we think 10% is all Jesus is interested in, we've lost it. God is interested in all of us. So the New Testament is now the second level of sacrifice. Zacchaeus says, I give 50. At entry level into Christianity, 50. And then he says, out of the other 50, I will pay back those that I stole from. Fourfold. When you open the book of Acts, when they had really now reached where God wanted them to reach, Acts chapter 4 verses 31 to 35, it says they were now selling houses. They were now selling lands to look, and they would look around and see if anyone had need. They would sell house, and they were now no longer counting percentages. They were saying, even my house can go. All to Jesus I surrender. So what God is trying to do with us in tithing is starting us on the journey towards him. But it doesn't end with tithing. It starts with tithing, then it goes to all to Jesus. But imagine if you don't even start with tithing.
Now, that will be a huge burden when it comes to all to Jesus I surrender. It will be a tussle.
That's it. Are you okay?
That's a good one. That's really good. I mean, somebody said somewhere, I was listening to people talk, and they were saying, somebody was saying, the Old Testament is so difficult. And then the friend told him, wait until you get to the Second Testament. And he was like, what do you mean? And told him, remember, in the Old Testament is if you commit adultery, you're supposed to be stoned, right?
Right.
But in the New Testament, the stakes are high. Jesus says, by simply looking. So whatever you're saying, I'm getting into it right now, and it's making more sense because we are in light into light. The first light you receive is quite little, right?
Right.
And the more you get the light, the more it becomes huge. The light becomes wide because as we were thinking it's about money, but now we are realizing it's about Christ.
It's about Christ and the relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why Christ said to the man, give your wealth to the poor. All of it. Then you realize that, okay, God is not looking just for part of us. He's looking for all of us.
Yeah. All of it.
Yeah.
Second question, tied to the first one. If they were meant to sustain the Levites, why do we still have it even after them? I think that question has already been answered.
It was answered because it wasn't about the Levites. Even though in Numbers 18:21, God says, I've given it to the Levites.
Yes.
If you track history, tithing existed way before the Levites.
Yes.
Because Levi was Jacob's son.
Yeah.
Jacob was Isaac's son. Isaac was Abraham's son. That's the fourth generation. Abraham was already giving tithes. Tithes were already existent in Abraham's time before Levi.
Yeah.
So it's something that was established before Levi, and it's something that will be there after Levi, because it's not a Levitical order thing. Let me ask you a good question. Is it if it was about Levi, it would have ended then? Okay. Yeah, because it was Levitical.
Yes.
But this one is about relationship.
Yeah.
That's why even Christ is saying the weightier matters. There are weightier matters behind it, which he established at the beginning. Have the weightier matters been abolished? No. I still need to have justice.
Yeah.
I still need to have mercy.
Yes.
I still need to have faith. So do you still need to develop faith in the New Testament?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still need to have faith after Levitical order?
Yes.
Yes.
That's an interesting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that now if the Levites are no longer there, now we stop doing what was required of us from God, because He changes not.
Yeah, because we still need to develop our character. The weightier matters.
Yeah. So somebody was coming from the school of thought. That's the third question. Jesus. We all say in church there's this thing we say, especially when things are covered by the church, we turn to the hymn, Jesus paid it all. So he's asking, if Jesus died on the cross, Jesus paid it all, isn't tithing a rejection of the fact that Jesus already paid for everything that we should be doing in regards to our relationship with Him? He already paid it, so basically tithes and offerings shouldn't be part of that.
What happens when your parents pay your school fees? Do you stop studying? Do you stop having to burn the night flame? The midnight flame, yeah?
No.
Jesus paying it all does not mean He does everything for us. We still need to develop our character.
Okay.
Yeah, there's human effort and then there's divine power.
Yeah.
Now, tithing is not paying for anything. It's not a punishment. It's not a tax. It's character development. It's just like exams. Do you write exams for a child and think you're doing them a favor? You can't write exams for a child. In fact, let me give you an example. A mother buys a child a pack of chips.
Yes.
The child is happy going around my chips, and I'm happy with my chips. Then the mother comes back to the child and asks for a chip. What are they doing?
They're simply instilling some
character issues.
Yeah.
The mother paid for the chips.
Yes.
He paid it all.
Yeah.
But he still requires for the child to learn how to also pay it all.
Yes.
We must also learn how to pay it all.
Yes.
How to pay for others. That's the same character of God. Because we are looking to develop the character of Christ.
Yeah.
If Christ is that much of a giver that He paid it all, He's expecting us to be that much of givers that we paid all also. The Levites are working. So what? We should let them work for free and not pay them and not sacrifice. He's trying to establish a spirit of sacrifice. Wow. And that can never be done by Jesus alone. It has to be done by us.
There's a statement you just made there, and I just want to emphasize by repeating it. If Jesus gave all, we should give all as well. We should learn to give all as well.
That's it. That's the character. That's the image of God.
So clearly, the issue of tithe and offering is not going anywhere anytime soon. Kindly adjust your belt, because that one is here to stay.
Oh, yeah. And it's good for us. We should celebrate that.
Oh, true. So this is the final question. The one that I loved, because I didn't have an answer. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The Bible says we are a royal priesthood. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? If tithes were given to the priests in the OT, now the New Light in the New Testament says we are co-workers with Christ. We are of a royal priesthood. Shouldn't we now keep the tithes and offering for ourselves? Because, we will set it aside and maybe do something for ourselves because we are the priests as well. So, why should we take it to church?
I think I've addressed this already, but let me give it a different, or let me bring it in a different light.
Yes.
Tithe belongs to God, not to the priests.
Nice.
Because in Leviticus 27 verse 30, all the tithes of all is holy. It's mine. You understand?
Yeah.
So God owns it.
Yeah.
When we become God, we can do what we want with our tithes.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
God owns tithes. All right. So God says, bring the tithes to me.
Yes.
And then he gave them to the Levites. But we must understand the reason why the Levites, the priests, were given that tithe.
Okay.
Because of their work in the temple. God didn't want them to be working every day in the fields, but to be working toward establishing and restoring a relationship as intercessors between man and God.
Yeah.
So he says, because I'm using you in my plan of salvation, you are a critical part of making sure that when men come and they've sinned every day, they will not look for a priest to establish the sanctuary service and find that they're busy looking for their own food. I'm giving them the food from my tithes. So if you are full-time in ministry and you are establishing that intercessory role in the royal priesthood, by all means you should be having a portion of the tithe. But not your tithes. Because the Levites were never allowed to eat their own tithes. They would bring their tithes. In fact, they ate the tithes of the members who brought. But they also had to tithe. And they couldn't say, I'm a priest, so I should eat this tithe. No Levite was saying, I'm a priest, so I eat my own tithe. Your tithe would go back, and others, God would find others to give that tithe. So this royal priesthood issue, we need to understand, first of all, why God gave the Levites. And it's explained in Numbers 18:21. I have given the children of Levi because of the work that they do in the temple. And that's understandable, because God didn't want them to be looking for food. He wanted them to be looking for souls. And then those souls who were tithing would then give them food. So ideally, this royal priesthood, only God can eat his tithe. Even the priests couldn't. Even the Levites couldn't. They would eat the tithes of God having been given. But their own tithes of their own relationship, they would also bring back to the sanctuary. Wow. I don't know if that makes sense.
For me, it even makes sense from the simplest form of if the priesthood started from the Old Testament. And that's you've said that they were not even allowed. God did not allow them to have their own tithe. Meaning, if it wasn't then, and the whole idea comes from there, then we can't edit We can't edit it now.
We can't.
It's the same thing. So
It's the same.
We shouldn't.
It's not only Numbers 18:21, even in, I think it's Nehemiah chapter 10.
Yeah.
You also find the same principles. He said these days we're reading the book of Nehemiah as a church.
Yeah.
He says that the priests, they must return a tithe of the tithe. What they're eating is tithe because they were given.
Yeah.
But now that they've been given, they must also return a tithe. Sure. So this is the one that the member is asking about, because he's saying, my tithe, since I'm a royal priest, I must eat my tithe. The Levites never ate their tithe. They also brought it to God.
Brought it to God. So I think that question is well answered. So if you believe you're a priest and a co-worker with Christ, He's the one who has given you. So we know that you're supposed to give tithe.
Oh yeah.
So you need to give your tithe. So don't use it for yourself. Otherwise, the owner might come for it, and we know he is good at coming for his tithe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what would be your parting shot as we come to a close?
I wish we knew that this issue of tithing, if we look at it as a burden, we've lost it. It's such a blessing. Yeah. God would not have established it if it was meant to impoverish and to burden people. Even the poor were not exempt from the tithes. If you read about the story of the Macedonians, God did not make it an absolute figure. He made it a percentage of whatever you got. And it's a beautiful experience when you can now worship God, even with little. Remember the widow of the 2 mites? What she gave in church was a fraction of a penny, insignificant in terms of its value and what it could do to the church. But God said this was the biggest gift. Why? Because she gave her all. Because that's all God is looking for. All to Jesus I surrender.
Okay.
So it's not even about amount. It's about the condition of the heart. So tithing is there to expose the conditions of the heart. Wow. And if you find yourself not tithing, check the relationship.
There's a famous former radio presenter called Mr. Jalas. There's a statement he said that the volume of a person's character is equivalent to the amount of money you put in their pockets. So the amount of money will adjust the volume of their character. If they are terrible people, just give them money and you will confirm the volume will just increase. So if somebody tells you they are humble and they are poor and they don't have money, take easy steps towards them. Hallelujah. But give them money and they will truly show you the true condition of them. Yeah. So guys, you've heard it from Mandikudza. I think this was a very, very, very important discussion that we've had. And for me, I think all these inspired words, he's inspired. I believe that, and I thank God for this session. And I believe that if we embrace tithing and offering and truly connect with Christ, because we cannot do this by ourselves. You will do it today, tomorrow, on your own, and eventually you will give up. But if you're connected with Christ, He will hold your hand each step of the way. Because which kind of God? I don't know so many gods who tell you to do something, and then as you go ahead to do it, He comes and holds your hand in doing that thing that will benefit Him. So basically, He's also doing the work. His sleeves are rolled back. He's not the God who be like, hey, just do, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, and just sitting there and waiting for you. It's not about works, it's about a relationship. That's why when He was here, He was a carpenter. When Christ was here, He worked as a carpenter. And those who have been in His footsteps, we look at Paul. Paul was a tent maker. So this is a relationship kind of thing. And I pray that at the end of this session, we will be blessed and we will have a connection with Christ. Thank you, Mr. Mandikudza, for having this session with us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hallelujah.
And we hope that we're going to have you another time, maybe in this country or in that country.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome.
Zimbabwe.
And I'm looking forward to the next session.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hoping you'll have 1 million subscribers.
Amen. From your mouth to God's ears. Yeah, so guys, that's all from the perspective. This is 002, and we hope that you like and subscribe so that you can be notified on when we post our next video. Also catch Gerald with the Bible stories, showing on the Refocus Studios channel, YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram. That's the Refocus Studios, and also on Facebook. As at now, it's still Adoration Studios. My name is Brian Othoo. To you, oh, sorry, it does not work like that. Henry, how can we find you? How can they find you? If somebody wants to have a question direct to you, or advice and this, can they reach you?
They can reach me. I've got a YouTube channel as well.
All right, okay.
Mandikudza Sitholetalks is my YouTube channel. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook, not on Instagram, because I'm that old. But yeah, look, they can send me an email. Kudzi dot Sithole. That's Kudzi is Kudzi. Dot Sithole is Sithole at me, which is me.com. So it's Kudzi, Kudzi dot Sithole, Sithole at me.com.
I was expecting, people from the south, they have this clicking sound. I was expecting maybe that will drop at some point. Yeah, but anyway, guys, that's all for today. Ciao, ciao. Like Gerald says, ciao, ciao.